Hello. Most people lump Lee Friedlander into the same bracket as Winogrand, but they become unsettled by his less easy to read images. These guys were assigned the label of social landscape photographers, and their aesthetic was sometimes described as snapshot-ish. There was a sense that these two were taking the compositional arrangements of people like Cartier-Bresson and others and mixing it with a bit of drug-infused beat generation spirit and maybe adding a bit of Robert Frank's rebellion. Winogrand's images tend to be impactful while Friedlander's are generally about the mundane, but they have an overlay of complexity. Critics initially claimed that Friedlander's work was too undertheorized, banal, and haphazard. Back in the 1960s, his work was considered to be, just weird, and it wasn't exactly welcome in the art world. He didn't do much to counter these criticisms. He almost embraced them. He said, "Art is too big a word for me. It has too many letters in it." He was resistant to explaining what he was up to. But MoMA's John Sikowski saw something in his work and included it in the landmark New Documents exhibition along with Winogrand and Dianabis. Sikowski recognized in the three artists a shared fascination with the commonplace. Friedlander's participation in New Documents led to only one picture sale, but it allowed him to consolidate his position as one of photography's new mavericks. A year later, his first solo book was published, called Self-Portrait.
They say that the camera never lies, but it can stretch the...
On first glance, Friedlander's images seem casual, even careless, and his subject matter is often dull and pedestrian. He was out to break the rules of what was considered to be good photography by the pre-60s art world. High art photography had up until then aimed towards expressing some universal or transcendent message. Elements were generally arranged and lit in a way that was pleasing to the viewer's eye. Friedlander was breaking the standard rules, and in so doing he turned the primary focus of his work away from the subject and onto the medium of photography and the act of photographing. Even though he was challenging the old ways, in a way he was intentionally or unintentionally reinforcing the artistic potential of the photographic medium. Winogrand was able to create powerful compositions out of the chaos of the street. And these early Friedlander street shots are similar to Winogrand's, but not exceptional. He evolved his aesthetic in order to portray America as an unusual and alien social space. He was capturing an emotion within the frame that conveyed the idea of the indifference of big cities, as well as the indifference of the vast spaces of America. He says that he doesn't take a photograph with a purpose or idea in mind, but relies on seeing a subject that sparks his interest and then capturing it. This is typical Friedlander speak. It's far too simplistic because he's actually out to get us in some way. He isn't just taking interesting pictures. He's taking pictures that are compelling because they challenge our minds to explore his layered frames in order to gain understanding and even meaning. Friedlander's a restless person, and he's providing us with fairly bland subject matter which has peripheral interest. Then instead of simplifying the frame, which is what a lot of photography is about, he's adding layers of compositional complexity to the scene. His images are similar to paragraphs of writing that are full of word plays. He leaves the interpretation of his images up to the viewer. But looking at his work, you start to get an idea of his character. The images reveal a restlessness and inner turmoil that's gaining an outlet through photography. The devices that he uses could be described as painterly. There's often a strong abstract or graphic quality that draws on the work of the cubists and abstract expressionists. Look at this image. We become only slightly curious about the background. A man walking on the left and a man in the car on the right. But essentially it's a composition of vertical lines and fields that break up the frame. In the center, he places a mirror with his reflection. Barnett Newman's paintings from the 1950s emphasized vertical and horizontal line elements. The concept behind these strips is to link them with the frame around the canvas. This image has a similar composition. It comes from his Monument series. The monument is a minor player within the whole picture, and the image is about shape and line. The dark car structure in the foreground breaks the scene into quadrants. Robert Motherwell's Elegy to the Spanish Republic used this technique. The aim of the abstract expressionist was to convey feeling through abstraction. In this case, Motherwell was making an abstract interpretation of what he considered to be a funeral song to Spain post-Civil War. He went on to produce over 170 paintings around this theme. Another frequently occurring feature in Friedlander's photographs is the way that he creates patterned obstructions in the foreground. This detail has a similar effect to the vertical and horizontal lines. The patterned detail again links with the frame and draws our attention to the whole object as an art piece. Jackson Pollock's strip paintings broke the mold by creating an overall composition rather than making the painting about any particular aspect of focus. We then start to see his paintings as two-dimensional units rather than any implication of depth. Many Friedlander photographs look like collages, with an assortment of elements and visual fragments. The images can't be resolved at first glance. Viewers need to interpret which details are related to which layers of information. You can see in these photographs by Alex Webb that he's used this technique really well in color. Friedlander particularly liked a characteristic that is hardwired into the medium of photography. That is the compression of foreground and background information, and how it creates juxtapositions and associations that are not really present in real life. In these images, the elements that are present within the three-dimensional space become flattened spaces within a two-dimensional surface. Using a high aperture allows everything to be in focus, which adds to the illusion of diminished depth. The relationships and meaning that he's pointing to only become visible when you view the scene in the form of a photograph. So when you break down what he's doing on a compositional level, you can see that his primary focus was addressing issues related to art culture. On another level, he had some seriously obsessive preoccupations. These included self-portraits, television screens, commercial signage, storefronts, monuments, nudes, and reflections. These subjects were always secondary to his humorous and playful framing constructions that keep us aware of his presence in the moment that the photographs were taken. Friedlander is said to have changed the history of photography by his experiments with the medium. He keeps us at arm's length as he explores middle-class America. Not only did he have obsessions about certain subjects, but he was also obsessed about taking pictures. I think that the topic of Lee Friedlander is too big for one video, so I'll do a follow-up looking at the different themes that he pursued and what they have to say about the society that he was photographing and about him as a photographer. Thanks for joining me, and please watch the next one. Okay, cheers.